Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with a video. Well, I decided to save the best for last, and I'm going to do zenitsu before I do Inosuke. Yes, I know. My boy Inosuke is the GOAT, alright? Beast-breathing form all the way. Now, again, we know the stats on the terraformers, so I can skip ahead. So, Zenitsu's character, he is the user of the thunder-breathing form, a form that deals with blazing speed, and more importantly, has an emphasis on draw cutting. Basically, a batojutsu form. Now, when we first know Zenitsu's backstory, he was basically married to this woman to basically settle a gambling debt. Zenitsu's master, the former Thunder Hashira, finds him and wants to train Zenitsu to be a demon slayer. Zenitsu, being a bloody coward beyond all form of redeemment, I mean, you can't redeem him at this point. He has no redeeming qualities. He's a complete coward that runs away at the slightest sight of an enemy that would usually be fodder for even the basic demon slayer troops. Now, as I was saying, so Inosuke, when his master finds him, brings him to his home to train him, and Zenitsu is only able to learn one form of thunder breathing. The first form, thunder breathing first form, Thunder God Clap, where he basically puts, and this is the form that he takes when he's using it, all the power he can gather into his legs, draws the sword, and slices down the demon. Now, you may think, how can a complete coward be able to do this? Well, when Zenitsu reaches a certain point of scared shitless, his brain actually turns off, he goes to sleep, and actually becomes a badass capable of killing demons. The only problem is when he awakes, he becomes a complete bitch again. Now, you're probably wondering how Zenitsu has blonde hair. No, he's not a foreigner. In the story, he got struck by a thunderbolt and his hair turned blonde. Now, when Zenitsu first meets Tanjiro, he's basically trying to get this girl to marry him. He refuses, and Zenitsu pretty much becomes a laughingstock for the first half of the series. I mean, the dude has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Now, up until, like I did with Tanjiro, up until the spider arc, Zenitsu didn't even fight the father spider demon. He fought other lesser demons on the mountain, and again, we went unconscious and was able to kill them. So, I want to say that if Zenitsu went unconscious, he'd be able to kill at least maybe 5 or 10 terraformers. Simply because whenever he uses the Thunder God Clap, he's able to cut a maximum of about 5 to 10 times before he stops. Now, he actually uses... Now, Zenitsu later on actually does redeem himself and become an actual agreeable character. But this isn't until much later in the story. So at this point, he's only able to take on about 4 or 5, maybe max 10 terraformers. Not an extremely powerful feat, especially since when he goes back unconscious, when he regains consciousness, he'll just run away and basically try to escape with everything he has. Now, we move forward to the Entertainment District arc. Now, there is something I should say, that during the event of the Mugen Train, another kind of in between the mountain, in between learning full concentration breathing, which he does, alongside Inosuke and Tanjiro, and before the Entertainment District arc, they're in the Mugen Train arc, which is a train that has been turned into a demon train by one of the lower upper moons. So, not one of the 6 upper moons, it's one of the 6 lower moons. But they're collectively called the upper moon, so it's a lower upper moon, just to clarify. So this guy turns the entire train into a demon trying to basically feast on the souls of everyone inside. And they're joined by another Hashira who at the time was considered either the strongest or the second strongest Hashira Rengoku who used flame breathing. And Rengoku was able to defend 3 whole train cars on his own. Zenitsu was actually able to defend 2 on his own, but that's because of his speed. Now, it's unclear whether Zenitsu lost consciousness when he was defending these train cars or not, but I'm willing to bet he was. This was mentioned later on in the manga, where we caught up with Zenitsu after the Mugen Train incident. So as long as Zenitsu is unconscious, at this point he's able to fight. But after Rengoku dies at the hands of Upper Moon 3 Akaza during the event of the Mugen Train arc, is when Zenitsu actually starts to take shit seriously. And when he gets into the Entertainment District arc, we actually see Zenitsuke actually be able to somewhat fight, somewhat conscious. He's kind of in between being asleep and awake through most of the battles during the Entertainment District arc. And it's not until after the Entertainment District arc where we get into the Swordsmith, where we get past the Swordsmith Village arc, because, again, not important. We don't know what Zenitsu was doing there, so no real power up there. We know that after the Swordsmith Village arc, when the Hashira begin to train the lower Demon Slayers, that Zenitsu is taking part in the Hashira training as well. And when we first see him, he is classical, I don't want to do this, it's going to hurt, I don't like pain, basically being his whiny little bitch self. Now a whole lot of character development, especially since he's the bad kind of pervert, the creepy kind, and not the cool kind like Master Roshi or Jiraiya. Okay? Teach a whole generation. But that's beside the point. It's not until Zenitsu gets a letter saying that his master had committed seppuku, basically harakiri, or, and I'm probably going to get flagged for this, saying there's suicide. Because Zenitsu's other fellow student, his brother in the thunder breathing form, was turned into the replacement Upper Moon 6 by Kokushibo. By him becoming a demon, Zenitsu's adoptive grandfather / master thought that it was his fault and committed harakiri as a repentance. Which Zenitsu, when reading this, finally gets serious and starts being a redeemable character because he wants to avenge his grandfather, he wants to avenge his master's death, and kill this new Upper Moon 6, which he eventually does. And we eventually learn, because thunder breathing only has, as I remember correctly, 6 forms. And it's ironic because Zenitsu was only able to learn 1 form when his brother was able to learn all other 5. The other 5 forms, but not the first, drawing a clear parallel. And his grandfather told Zenitsu, if you can only do one thing, master that one thing until you can do it better than anybody else. And Zenitsu took that shit to heart when he created this. Alright? Thunder breathing 7th form, Flaming Thunder God Clap. Alright? Whenever there's a dragon involved in the Demon Slayer universe, that is an OP attack. That is Hashira level. Alright? And I should mention that during this fight with the new Upper Moon 6, Zenitsu was conscious. Alright? He was actually awake during this fight. This was the fight that redeemed Zenitsu as a character overall for me, and actually made me give him props and earn some respect. Alright? Put some respect to Blondie's name. Now, as this is Zenitsu near the end of the story, literally in the final last few chapters, how would he fare against terraformers? Well, simply put, Zenitsu, prior to the Hashira training arc, again, probably would have only been able to handle maybe 5 or 10 terraformers at max before either dying or literally fainting himself to death. But this zenitsu, after fighting Upper Moon 6, keep in mind that after fighting Upper Moon 6, he then joined in the fight voluntarily, I might add, to fight Muzan, the most powerful demon in the show, the king of demons in Demon Slayer. He went up and he voluntarily helped fight the final boss. Alright? After he had already finished his fight and got his revenge for his grandfather. He didn't bitch out this time. So put some respect to this boy's name, okay? Get this fucking man a goddamn blunt and a do-rag, because he's fucking shit up, okay? Alright? But I digress. So, during the final battle, if, let's say, Zenitsu had to fight terraformers after the end of Demon Slayer, I feel like his abilities, he'd actually be able to fight near to the same level as Tanjiro, taking on about maybe 30 or 40 maxed out 50 terraformers before eventually either dying simply because he's no longer able to keep up the fight, or until he realizes that he really I don't think he'd run away anymore. That kind of part of him was basically slapped out of him by Muzan. So honestly, the only way I could see end of Demon Slayer Zenitsu running from the fight with terraformers is if another larger group showed up that he wasn't able to fight. Which then again, I wouldn't blame him for. That would then be called a tactical retreat and not running away. There's a difference between going into a battle and fighting as many as you can before the enemy reinforcements show up, and just running away before the fight even starts. But, what do you think of my Zenitsu versus Terraformers video? Now, I know I talked a lot and everything, but I do believe Zenitsu can be redeemed if written right, and he was written right in the end. So, leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, my noble band of outlaw samurai tells all y'all be crazy rednecks with safe using weapons. I'm out. Peace. And look forward to Inosuke being next.